Broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African-American-owned broadcasting studio. We believe digital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African-American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. When We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again. Welcome to a special edition of Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from our very own broadcast studios located right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the deep, deep South, where I like to say that the air is just a little bit cleaner and the grass is just a little bit greener down here in Jackson, Mississippi. Now, we've been seen on Facebook, on Roku TV, on YouTube, and our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com. We've been broadcasting into over 139 countries. We're being seen all over the world. And to my sister Ethel up in Sacramento, California, I hope you're doing well. And to Tony down in Belize, I hope you have an opportunity to watch this show. This is a special edition of Socrates Garrett Live because Jackson, Mississippi has been on the national stage now for the last several months. We had a major water crisis where all sorts of dignitaries and friends and allies came to Jackson to see if they could help. President Biden sent Secretary Reagan from the EPA down to take a look at the water crisis. Congressman Benny Thompson has been here every day working through this water crisis that we were having. And so today I have the pleasure of introducing two gentlemen that are here with neighborhood economics. You and I know that the economy is the most important thing to Americans. It was the number one thing that the citizens were asked what concerned them the most in the recent elections in the House and the Senate. They all said that the economy was the number one issue. So our guest today with neighborhood economics is a very, very welcome sight to Jackson, Mississippi. So I'm going to start with my guest to my left, and we're going to let Mr. Jones introduce himself and tell us a little bit about why you're here and who you are.
Why I'm here. Well, actually, I'm back here. We owned the Mississippi Business Journal with my wife, Rosalie Harden, back in the 90s. And my kids went to public schools 12 years here, at Murrah and Bailey and Davis, which is now Obama. And so I'm glad to be back. And we're here because we're here to help get capital to the folks who don't normally get it. And there are a variety of innovative new funds, financial platforms that are causing black folks to start having ownership of assets and businesses to grow because these new funds have found a way to get the money to the 90+% of black-owned businesses that are sole proprietors, and the assets of preserving and reviving black Wall Streets through things called neighborhood investment trusts. And so we're here to augment what's already happening here and to highlight it, but also bring in some national models that could help cause change back here in Mississippi.
Wonderful. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Socrates.
Our other guest is Reverend Leroy Barber. Reverend, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and what you got on your mind.
Well, thanks for having us on. I live in Portland, Oregon now, but originally from Philadelphia, and spent about 16 years in Atlanta. So I've been on each coast and down in the South for a while, and I've been a pastor and an entrepreneur, worked a long time and still work in community development and community engagement. And I'm here because what we stand for is getting money and resource to communities that historically have not gotten it. And that is our bottom line. And we're working with local communities and entrepreneurs to see if we can make that actually happen.
How did you make the contact in Mississippi? Who was your host?
Well, Rosalie and Kevin, who are the founder of our organization, are from here. Rosalie was born here, and she brought Kevin here when they got married.
Right.
And so this is obviously, you said Jackson's on the map right now for a number of reasons, and they're from here, and so we're excited to be here and be part of what's going to happen.
So, Mr. John, you were from Mississippi?
My wife is from Mississippi. Okay. Both my kids were born here, and they finished public school 12 years here. I was an Army brat, so I was around a lot, mostly in California.
Okay. And I believe you were associated with the Mississippi Business Journal.
We bought the Business Journal. It had failed 5 times and had 2 stronger competitors, so it was easy to buy. And but then within 3 years they were out of business, and we had a trade journal called Mississippi Expo, and I had a daily or weekly show on WLBT, Mississippi Business Minute. We had a syndicated radio show on 37 stations as well.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about working together, Jackson, and how you became involved with them. Perry.
That's an odd thing. Perry Perkins went to college with my wife at Mississippi College. And so they've known each other for, maybe more years than she would want me to tell you. But we've done these conferences, Neighborhood Economics, in Indianapolis and Cincinnati and Louisville and Oakland, California. And they've worked to bring new capital in to entrepreneurs who are typically under-resourced, and we're able to tell the story to white allies to get them engaged. And so then with the water and other things, we contacted Perry, and he said this working together could really use what you have.
Wow.
And I'd worked together with Bill Bynum at Hope Credit Union on another project, and Bill said, you're a piece of the puzzle that we don't have, so I think we can. He said, I want to help you in Jackson as long as you go to Moorhead and Drew. So I said, Bill,
Moorhead and Drew.
We can be there.
Reverend, you are a pastor.
Yes, I am.
And so it's kind of odd for a pastor to take on this mission in terms of trying to help the businesses. Normally we live by keep state and church separated and business things there. How did you transition, or have you transitioned?
So, I've been an entrepreneur actually longer than I knew I was a pastor, because for me, this started when I was a kid. I had a paperboy route, right? And figured out how to make money, do sales, collections, right? All the basics from when I was 11 years old when I started doing that. And then from there, I've started a number of different businesses and pursuits, many failures along the way. But so that's been a part of me for a long time. Then I wound up going to seminary and learning about the spiritual parts of life and diving into the Bible. They didn't talk much about economics there. And so this is kind of full circle for me to come back to these two parts of me, this part that loves the church and loves faith and is a pastor, and is part of me that loves creating and loves business and wants people to understand and know how money is not our enemy. It is something that's important to God and important for our economy.
You think that there's a stigma, especially in the black community, that the root of all evil is money. So much to the point that we don't encourage our children to pursue entrepreneurship and to understand capitalism and how it works in America. Do you think that there's a disconnect in the African American community when it comes to that?
I think there is a disconnect, but I think it's a historical disconnect. I think it's what you say. I think there's not enough understanding of how money works, right? And that has been purposely taken away from the black and brown communities, right? Like entrepreneurship, creating business, creating economy, all these kind of things. For the most part, people have had to do that, right, on shoestring budgets, as opposed to how do I get people to invest in this business, right? Promise to pay them back if I do good business, understanding how this all works. That I didn't grow up with that understanding. I had to learn that.
Right. It's certainly not taught in our schools.
No, sir. And I think that's on purpose. That's me. I think it's purposely.
Well, how do you reconcile when Jesus gave out the talents? He gave one and one 5 and one 10. He was a bit upset with the guy that he gave. Was it 1 or 2?
Right. Well,
he gave the 1 talent to. He was a bit upset with that. He buried it. I believe.
Yeah.
So economics in the Bible should not be in conflict with each other.
No.
Biblical teachings and principles ought to lead to economic prosperity, don't you think?
I do. I believe in that. And I also believe there's warnings in the Bible about exploitation, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look through Amos and all these Old Testament places where God is over and over saying, don't exploit the poor, right? Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, there's explicit scripture that says, don't charge folks who are economically challenged interest.
Wow.
Now, we do the complete opposite of that. Right?
I believe every 7 years you're supposed to give a man of his debt. But
right? Return debt, start things over again, all of the jubilee.
Yeah.
We don't practice any of that, right?
We don't.
And so I think it's just a convoluted understanding of money and finance.
Wow. Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were friends with Bill Bynum.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about who Bill Bynum is.
So Bill Bynum runs Hope Credit Union, and they're all over 5 states. They're a lender, and they're in Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and some in Tennessee. And one of the things I know about Bill, we were trying to get a credit union based in a black church up in Pennsylvania using their system, and that they do they work with the poorest folks, and they have the lowest default rate nationwide. Mm. So $500 emergency loans, mama's sick, the roof fell in or whatever. Their default rate is so much lower than the national average, because Bill says, we know the people we loan to, and we know their communities, and we know who's the drunk who's sobered up and who is somebody whose mom is sick and needs something. And so the way they work with lots of folks, we're really looking forward, because they're also trying to get beyond, they're trying to build assets, and we have some new funds that can come alongside some of their work in the Delta and other kinds of places that could, we have a new kind of fund that I mentioned, this community equity fund, that can help the 90% of black businesses who are sole proprietors become job creators and then get the CDFI loans that they can't get from Hope. So we, as he said, you're a piece of the puzzle that we don't have, and I want to see how to work with you.
Well, I imagine you're a big piece of that puzzle. Access to capital and red line in the African-American community is something that goes on every day.
Yeah, it does.
It goes on every day and has gone on since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And so we see that happening today. There is limited access to capital. So your organization has a relationship with folk that have real money?
Well, some have real money. So our county has invested in us in this community equity fund, because we said, look, 93% of the people in Buncombe County near Asheville, which is where Asheville is, are sole proprietors, black business owners. But judge us on how many sole proprietors become job creators, and how many jobs are created, and what's the growth in income, and what's the growth in revenue for those businesses. And we turned out that we've become a low-cost job creator, because they're paying back revenue share and they're growing. And so, they can't handle debt, right? So we give them what's called philanthropic equity. So it's a little complicated, but you give and we invest, and then that money comes back in the fund to recycle to another entrepreneur to get them ready for these CDFI loans that are out there nationwide but never reach the ground. So we've figured out that gap of friends and family funding for folks who don't have a Socrates Garrett or other rich uncle.
I'm waiting to meet that rich uncle, by the way. I certainly need to. Now, finance and funding and bonding and the aptitude in the black business communities? Are you finding that to be severely deficient? Does it require more mentoring and apprenticeship programs, or what are you finding?
Well, so this program, the Community Equity Fund, is led by a black woman who's worked in our community 27 years and has built a serious operation with her Eagle Market Streets Community Development Corporation. And so she decided that we would only invest in folks who'd been around 3 years and were trending 50 to 100,000 of the sole proprietors, and then could reasonably pay back growth if you give them a couple of years runway. But what we found is that a lot of them, they do need some basics, cleaning up their books in some kind of ways, because they've been often having a couple side hustles along with their business. But the other thing is learning about themselves as powerful market players. So here's one example, and there's a lot of them like this. One of the guys that we invested $85,000 in, and he's a landscape contractor, but with the money we invested, he was able to get a contract with the Forest Service for 10 miles of trails. But in his other business, he was getting credit cards, and they discovered that his credit card service fees were higher than his payroll because he was just a sole proprietor who took the deal they got him. And so our loan officer, our investment officer said, look, you have market power now. You have $85,000 in the bank. You go in and negotiate a better deal. And so he is not used to thinking of himself as a business owner with assets. So that's the kind of training they need. Think about yourself as a powerful player as opposed to just taking the deal you're given. And so it's that redefining. And a lot of them say, I'm working in my business, I want to work on my business. And so they want to understand their cash flow. And so you have to help with things like that.
Yeah, it's a learning curve.
They totally learn. I mean, they're not used to having employees. Now they got to figure out what part of what I do can somebody else do.
Yeah. I know my experience on my first business loan. I received some funding from a Mesbic out of New York City, international paper company, ran the Mesbic. And they came down to make the loan, and we were doing the paperwork, and they wanted me to put up all of my stock in my LLC as collateral for the loan. Well, a young man like me, I didn't like that. I said, I'm not going to put up all of my equity in my company for this loan. And they said, well, the first thing we got to get you to understand is the golden rule. And I had always had a definition in mind for that. And I said, no, well, what is the golden rule? He said, he with the gold rules. So you either take this or we're going back to New York City. I quickly understood that. I accepted the loan. That was a good thing. But we had to learn. So, Reverend Baba, I met you in the faith community, but you're in an African-American city that's 85% of its population looks like you and me. Are you interacting with the government in any way, both at the city, the county, or at the state level?
Well, we're beginning that process. I'm a believer that, yes, you have to interact. We used to have, when I lived in Atlanta, we had a saying that you had to deal with the trinity of the city. That's the police, that's the politics, right? And then that's the pulpit, the pastors, right? So pastors, police, politics, you dealt with all three of those to get something done. And so we will be connecting with all of those entities as we move forward, because they're all key to for folks developing. Like you talk about contracts and bonds and licensing and insurance and permits. If you're going to, there's just a litany of things that people don't understand, and we want to walk people through. But you also, we live in a very relational world, and relationships get you a long way.
Right, and access to relationships in our community is very limited.
Yes.
Very limited. We don't go to the same churches with the bankers, and we don't go to the same schools with most of the most influential people. And the most segregated day in the week in the South is Sunday morning. Still today. And so we don't have relationships like that. We're getting ready to go to a station break, but we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. We've been seen all over the world, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Roku TV, and our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com. Now, you can reach out to us and call us at 800-492-5186. If you're on Facebook, we want you to go ahead on and send us some stars and share this program with your friends and neighbors. If you're on YouTube, we want you to subscribe. That will help us monetize this program as well. And on our very own website, webelievedigital.com, hit the donate button. And we're going to be right back, and we're going to talk about the power and the influence of the clergy in neighborhood economics. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into MDOT grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Are you dreaming of becoming an entrepreneur, but you're not sure where or how to start? At Entrepreneurs Academy 101, our online program will guide you step by step on how to start and grow your own business. We offer courses such as how to write a business plan, how to create a budget, and so much more. Our online training program is designed for you to learn at your own pace, and there's no set order to complete this program. Because our academy is online, you have the choice to learn with a group, with friends, or individually. Upon completion of the entire curriculum, you will receive a certificate of achievement to acknowledge that you have completed the training needed to become a successful entrepreneur. So enroll today to design the life that you love. Contact your entrepreneur coach, Brenda Myers, at 601-672-0695 or visit our website at www.entrepreneursacademy101.com for more information.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Welcome back to Socrates Garrett Live. This is a special edition of Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the Deep South, where one day the South will rise again, and it'll be full of diversity and inclusion like never before. And Mississippi will finally move off of the bottom to the top 10 in the rankings that matter in terms of the quality of life, healthcare and economics and things like that of that nature. So if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe on Facebook. Then you can share this with your friends and family. Also, if you're on our very own website, hit the donate button. And so we need your help and assistance. Call us at 800-492-5186. Now, we're talking today with some new friends of mine and some old friends of mine about neighborhood economics, an organization that is in town to promote and assist in developing an economy in our poorest communities, in African Americans, which have traditionally been denied access to capital and contracts. You know, in Jackson, Mississippi, a city that has 85% of its population is African American. And the mayor of Jackson once said, if 85% of your citizens are left-handed, you'll have some contracts for left-handed people. So it stands to reason that if 85% of your population is African American in Jackson, you ought to have some contracts for 85%. If you can't get there, certainly do better than where we are in less than 10%. In the state of Mississippi, we're less than 2% for contracts for African American firms, and we got to do better. But we can't do better by ourselves. And that's why we have with us today neighborhood economics. And I have two powerful women with me on this podium here today, and we're going to talk to them a little bit about their roles in their personal lives and in the business lives that they deal with every day. Now, to my left is the First Lady, probably in her own right. She is certainly a renowned individual, professor at Jackson State University. She is also First Lady to Bishop Glade Hill, who is a senior regional bishop here in Church of God in Christ. And I happen to have the opportunity to go to his installation about a month ago. And I can tell you this, that I've never been to a program that was better run, that had a higher quality and standards, and the invitation itself was a keepsake. I mean, it was not on paper, it was on some type of acrylic metal or plastic, and it's something that I will cherish and keep with me for a lifetime. But the highlight of the moment wasn't the bishop's outstanding speech, which it was absolutely one of the best speeches that I've heard. But Sister Hill was asked to do the prayer. And the first time I've ever seen anything like this, she called to the podium her children, and the three of them did the same prayer as they pointed and blessed the audience. It was absolutely moving. Sister Hill, how are you and how have you been doing?
I am here and excited for you.
Thank you.
This is an amazing studio. It's my first time visiting, but absolutely doing great. And thank you so much for the invite.
You are so welcome. How did you meet the folk at neighborhood economics?
Actually, through Working Together Jackson. And we connected actually and went to New York. We had the privilege of them partnering with us and supporting us, partially, of course, just to go to New York and to visit Brooklyn and to see the transformation in Brooklyn, New York, where the actual residents of Brooklyn partnered, with the city, outside investors, and actually transformed neighborhoods there. It was spectacular. So we've been energized to come back here and to say if they could do it in New York, where it is more difficult to acquire land, we could certainly do it here in Mississippi.
Tell me a little bit about your personal background. You went to school where you from, things like that.
Well, I'm a 833, so I'm a Lanier Bulldog graduate, high school. I'm a Tougaloo grad, and I'm also a Jackson State University grad. I love and we do believe. And so I graduated from those institutions, but I tell you, what I found most interesting about the educational system here in Mississippi is that out of my over 25 years of working at Jackson State, I found that the industry in Mississippi is poverty. And I've done a little research on that. Actually, we just got a paper published recently. But I've also noticed that the driver of that is the educational system. Mm-hmm. And so what we do there is we work every day to make sure that students have the opportunity to think outside of the box and to problem solve and to see things from a perspective that a concept over here is the same concept over here. Mm-hmm. You just need to learn how to analyze and connect that. So we've been doing that for years. It's been fun.
Okay. So what's it like being the First Lady of a regional bishop? What's that like?
It's submissive. That's what it's like. It's submissive. And I've learned that actually I'm here mainly because of him, because he met you all. He wants to support the cause here. And so I felt that every dream that I have in my life, it comes true if I just fall in line with order with my husband.
Okay.
So,
say that again. What's your...
I won't repeat that on camera.
No, right. Well, I tell you, you have two lovely children.
Three.
Okay. And how did you guys were able to do that at the installation? How were you able to pray in that way? I mean, this teenage boy is kind of hard to get him to pray at all. But to do that way, that was amazing.
Yeah, so we actually, so I have a child, a grown adult now. He's at Jackson State, and the other two are in high school, okay? But since the pandemic, he's been home. But ever since they've been small, I've pretty much tried to teach them just the Word of God. That's my only job. That's my job. And we try to learn Scripture from the heart, where they can recite it. And so literally we do that. We still do that every night.
Wow, that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We need a lot more of that.
Yeah.
Now, my guest on my right here is a sister of mine, a sister from another mother, but we still carry the same last name.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
Paula, welcome to Jackson, Mississippi. It's good having you here. And I saw you at the conference that we had today. So, are you traveling with these distinguished gentlemen with neighborhood
am.
economics?
I am, but like Kevin, I'm coming back to Jackson. I lived here for 15 years.
Okay.
Moved away from here 15 years ago and moved to North Carolina. But while I was here, I lived in Belhaven, worked at Millsaps College, taught at Millsaps College, and when neighborhood economics, for which I'm really a writer and editor and work with their communications offices, when they said that they were going to hold an event in Jackson, I said, now, I want to do more than some communications for that, because this city really has my heart. I mean, I was telling Leroy earlier today, in Asheville, I don't have to be honest, I think, most days about race relations, because Asheville's largely white, and because people of color that I intersect with are typically from my same socioeconomic background. And when I come back to Jackson, for one thing, feel at home, and for another, feel a level of commitment that it's easy for me to forget when I get back to Asheville. That I just, when you're downtown at Millsaps or in my old neighborhood, and when you shop at Kroger and when you go to any of the businesses, you really see race relations, and you really see the racial wealth gap at a level that you don't see in a lot of other places. And that's really a sense of calling for me, that economic justice has to be a part of our sort of faith expression, has to be a part of our, that I can't look myself in the mirror when I'm here without really remembering it. And there are other places in this country where I can go days or weeks at a time without even thinking about it. So it's a pleasure for me to be back in Jackson.
Well, it's good having you here. Now, you hit on the heart of some issues that I want to talk about. This is your hometown in a way, since you were here. Jackson experienced the highest murder rates of any country, second only to St. Louis, with 154 homicides. The wealth gap, many folk believe that the economy, the economics in Jackson are pushing that element of crime and dysfunction in the African American community. Over 40% of the population in Jackson, Mississippi lives below the poverty line.
Right.
And so when you see that, it tears at your heart to see that level of struggle in an American city.
Right, and it just reminds me, like Leroy and Kevin both said, that this is centuries in the making. We're not going to fix it overnight, but it is serious, and it comes from a deep racial divide in this state that we've never rectified. We've said, okay, well, we're going to have certain civil rights movements, but not all, right? We're going to make some things equal, but not everything. And so, we haven't really dealt with the centuries old and decades old reality that the average white family has, 140,000 is worth roughly 140,000, and the average black family is worth a tenth of that. That is because money's been handed down in as well as other keepsakes have been handed down in white families that black families haven't had access to. And so when we look around and then we see that economic reality, we have to start trying to respond to it if we really believe that we're all God's children. We're all legitimately equal in God's sight. And so for me, that becomes really important. It becomes about the money. I agree also it's about education. We've got to look at the quality of education. We got to look at what we're teaching. It's about teaching students that they can see themselves. Representation matters. One of my favorite stories is I can remember sitting in a church service and the pastor was going to town telling a story about a basketball player. And at the end of the story, the preacher said, "she." And the whole church went, "What?" Because when the pastor had said basketball player, we all pictured boy, right? Well, the same thing happens when we say entrepreneur. We all, including young black children, picture white people or banker or business owner or construction, then we limit, that language starts to limit, our possibilities, the way we imagine ourselves. And so for me, it's really important that we get to the heart of the matter and start changing the world we live in. Rosalie, Kevin's wife, likes to call it creating God's economy, and that's what I think we're about.
Wow. So we're going to have serious conversations then, and sometimes that's difficult.
Oh, sure.
And the state of Mississippi does not want to teach what we call critical race theory. So the state actually passed a law that said that it would not be taught in Mississippi schools, even though it was not being taught anyway. So we have a law to prevent something that wasn't happening. But how do you reconcile the fact that Mississippi history needs to be taught and shared, but at the same time protect those that weren't part of that history so that they don't become victimized and blamed for the sins of their father? How do you reconcile that struggle?
Well, I think that's a complicated question. I think that first, though, I think it's we have a sort of crisis of confidence. Truth will out itself. I mean, whether I teach it or not, truth will out itself, and kids will figure out, where their own family history. And so it's much more important to me to be taught it. I want to know what my family did or didn't do. And I also think this business in Mississippi and in lots of other states of saying that, it's making people uncomfortable. Learning should make you uncomfortable. The statistics you teach would make me uncomfortable, right? I mean, learning should make you uncomfortable, but history is absolutely uncomfortable. But not to teach it is a far greater threat, I think, than to teach it and to learn from it.
Wow. So, they say that when you educate a man, you educate a man. But when you educate a woman, you educate the entire family and community. I have evidence of that here today. It's been an absolute pleasure of mine to sit here and listen to the two of y'all talk about your experiences and your understanding of the conditions that are going on in this country and in this city and in this neighborhood. So I want to thank y'all for sharing with me here today. You've been watching Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting right here in Jackson, Mississippi from our very own broadcast studio. We've been seen in over 139 countries all across this country. You can find us on YouTube, Roku, Facebook, Instagram, and our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com. We need your support. Call us at 800-492-5186 on Facebook. Share this program with your friends and family. It's critically important that we get the word out of the work that neighborhood economics and this group is trying to do in a city that's experiencing this much dysfunction, this much trouble, this much poverty, and these high crime rates. It's obvious that we got to have folk come in here and help deal with this. And as I say all of the time to African Americans out there that have retired, that need to come home. Everybody in Chicago is from Mississippi. You need to come home and help us reclaim and rebuild this beautiful city and this wonderful state. The opportunity is here now. And so until next week, we want you to stay safe and enjoy yourself. Good night. Good evening. I'm Socrates Garrett, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African American-owned broadcasting studio. WeBelieveDigital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. When We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again.